In this video, I want to go over the rubric for the benchmark assignment. And this rubric can be found at the top of the Moodle page, of our Moodle page. The purpose of the benchmark is to assess your ability to integrate appropriate instructional technology to improve student achievement. And if we scroll down and look at the, the rubric, you are expected by the end of this course to be at the developing, okay? By the end of your professional semester, you're expected to be at proficient. It is aligned with CAPE standards, INTASC standards, Danielson standards. These are CAPE technology diversity standards, and then with the ISTE standards, which are the International Society for Technology and Education standards. The benchmark is two parts. The first part is a lesson plan, and the second part is a technology benchmark lesson plan analysis, which essentially is where you explain or talk about the choices that you made in your lesson plan. Talk more about that in just a second. So let's go back up. Again, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 criteria for both parts. And then there are 4 different levels that you can achieve from beginning to proficient, and your goal is to, by the end of this course, to be at developing. The first criteria is that candidates will use appropriate technology, social networking, digital networks, okay, apps, learning management systems, to design and plan instruction that supports student learning for all students. The key here is this word, appropriate. And that's what you're going to learn starting with this week's lesson on TPAC, is what makes a particular technology appropriate to use for the content that you are teaching. And of course that is the T, the technology, the content is the CK, and teaching is the P in TPAC framework, technology and pedagogy and content knowledge. So what you're going to be thinking about as you design this lesson is, why am I selecting this technology? Why is it appropriate for this content? And how is it going to help improve my instruction and support student learning? The next criteria is uses appropriate technology to provide differentiated instruction for all learners. And so now what we're talking about, or the key word here, is differentiate. There are lots of different ways that technology can differentiate. For example, assessment technologies can differentiate your instruction by incorporating graphics, audio, and images into your lessons to appeal to different styles of learning. If you are familiar with Universal Design for Learning, UDL, then you know that technology is a key component of that particular approach to instruction. And that particular approach to instruction is focused on the differentiation of instruction for all learners, for different styles of learners. So what you're going to be wanting again to think about in your lesson is, how am I using technology to differentiate my instruction? And we can also be differentiating our instruction for diverse learners, not in regards to styles, but also in regards to culture or race. One thing that comes to mind here is the digital divide, right? That what you're going to learn in this course is that there are populations of students who, due to the digital divide, do not have the same access and opportunity related to technology. Therefore, we have to differentiate our instruction in our classroom to incorporate instructional technology to meet the needs of those students. Number 3, designs and implements research-based, technology-infused instructional strategies to support learning of all students. And of course here, what we're focused on is the research-based instructional strategies. And obviously over the course of this semester, you're going to be reading about the integration of instructional technologies into your classroom, and those are you're going to want those obviously to inform the choices that you are making as you design your lesson plan for this course. Now, let me just pause for a second there and say, you don't have to create a new lesson plan for this course. You can use a lesson plan that you have already created. What you're going to do is you're going to infuse that lesson with technology. So this again is going to be research-based, technology-infused instructional strategies. Now your instructional strategies are going to be aligned with your, among other things, your whichever school of that you are aligned with as it relates to learning theory. So you're going to be wanting to think about that also. For example, if you're a social constructivist, then you're going to probably want, or you might be using tools like Google Documents or Padlet or Flipgrid, all of which support collaboration. And we know that collaboration is closely aligned with social constructivist learning theory. Next, we have that your lesson, the criteria is that your lesson provides opportunities for all students to use appropriate technology to further their learning through critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. So the key points here are our 21st century, go back up here, highlight that for you. The key points here are our 21st century skills, not our literacies, we'll learn about those also, but our 21st century skills. And this week when you look at the ISTE standards, especially the 2014, and those are my favorite of the two standards, when you look at the ISTE standards, you are going to see that they are connected to and infused with these 21st century skills. So you're going to be wanting to think about, again, and technology supports these, you're going to be wanting to think about how the technology that you're using in your class is encouraging and supporting these in your lessons. And what you're going to notice as you reflect on this and think about is what we are aiming for, whether it's with technology or anything else, is one, authentic learning opportunities, right? Real world opportunities for students to learn, to connect their learning to real world applications. We're also focused on, and it connects to that, it's hard to imagine one without the other, student-centered learning. Now, I'm not going to say there's not a time and a place for a presentation, whether it's with PowerPoint or Pear Deck or Prezi or Nearpod, whatever tool you want to use for your presentation. I'm not saying that there isn't a time and a place for that, but what we are geared towards, or what we are focused on, and what our target should be, is students are doing student-centered lessons. And so you're going to want to make sure that your lesson is giving opportunities for your students to use technology to create, to use technology to collaborate, to use technology to think critically and to communicate. Finally, the last criteria is that your lesson plan implements technology effectively to assess student learning. I'm sorry, this is not the last one. We have one more new there. The last one's always is on safety. So the second to the last one is that your use of technology in your lesson plan plans and implements technology effectively to assess students' learning, manage assessment data, and communicate results to appropriate stakeholders. Now for this lesson, I'm primarily focused on that you are using technology to assess students. Okay, and just that's due for focus primarily on that because of time constraints of the semester. So this is the only technology that it says in here that you have to use. You have to use technology to assess your students in some form or fashion. So that could be one of the 4 or 5 assessment technologies that I'm going to show you, like Socrative, Google Forms, Kahoot, quizzes, Plickers, or it could be a non-traditional assessment technology, a technology that's not specifically designed for assessment that can be used for assessment, like Flipgrid would be an example of that. So you want to make sure in your lesson that you're using technology to assess students. Finally, in this section, the benchmark asks that you provide and maintain a safe and secure and equitable classroom environment. Now, there's a part on the lesson plan that talks about how you're going to manage your classroom. Okay, and this really connects to that section, in my opinion. So you want to be thinking about in your lesson how you are ensuring that your use and student use is safe, secure, equitable, but also what you want to be thinking about is in that section where it talks about classroom management, that you're addressing these in that section. Okay? Now, and when we talk about equitable, and also we have to add, ethical. And so it's, an example of ethical would be something like that you're not teaching net etiquette to students, but also that that students aren't they're not cyberbullying, they're not pirating or plagiarizing. Those are just some examples of that. Okay, so that's the first part, the lesson plan. Now it's going to be, I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, we got a whole nother section to go. Okay, well this one's a lot easier, okay, because all this second part, which is your analysis, and what we mean by analysis is you're going to write a paper, a reflective paper on this, where you're going to discuss the choices that you made in your design of your lesson. So if we look at these criteria here, if we look at these, what you're going to see for the most part is they are aligned, they are all the same, wording's a little different because they all have this: provides a relevant research-based rationale, offers a relevant research-based rationale at the beginning of them. They're all connected to the criteria and aligned with the criteria in the lesson plan. So let's just take a look at 1 or 2 of them. So the first one says, provides a relevant research-based rationale explaining how the technology used is appropriate to design and plan instruction that supports student learning. So if we go back up to the top, that's the same thing. Uses appropriate technology to design and plan instruction to support student learning. Technology used appropriate to design and plan instruction to support student learning. So this is the same. And all it is where you are talking about in your paper about how the technology that you selected is appropriate to teach this content, right? Same way with the next one. Offers a relevant research-based rationale explaining how the technology used is appropriate to provide differentiated instruction. Remember, back up here, second one, differentiated instruction, right here. So in this one, you're going to explain how the technology that you used and the way that you use it in your lesson provided differentiated instruction for all learners. And it's the same for each one of those. And to do that, okay, you're going to refer to your readings over the course of this semester. So it's extremely important that you do a close reading of all of the assigned readings, because you're going to be asked to reference those in this paper. And the effectiveness of your benchmark paper will be determined by your ability to cite specifically from the readings that we've done over the course of this semester to support the choices that you made in your lesson plan. Okay, so that's it for the lesson plan. I will provide additional videos where I take the lesson plan template and go through the example that I've provided you, talking about what I expect in each one. And I will also provide another video later in this semester where I talk again specifically about what I'm looking for in each one of the sections, or how you can meet each one of the criteria for the paper. Hope this helped. If you have additional questions, you can contact me by emailing me, by texting me, or giving me a call.